Welcome to The Insider, the official podcast for the City of Murfreesboro. I'm Mike Browning. Our guest for this podcast is Fire Chief Mark McCluskey. McCluskey became the new fire chief effective July 1st after serving as interim chief for a year. He has over 38 years of experience with Murfreesboro's Fire Rescue Department. And Chief McCluskey, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
And congratulations on this appointment. I know sometimes when you get elevated to this position, it's almost such a challenge that you regret it sometimes, but,
well,
but it's here.
It's been a challenge, but it's here now, and I'm facing the challenge head on and moving forward. It's everything's looking good right now.
Now, how many firefighters do we have, or how big is the department?
If we're fully staffed, we have about 244, and about 11 of those are civilian jobs. The rest of them are registered certified firefighters, and that's from the firefighters all the way up to myself.
Now, you're a native of Murfreesboro, right? So you grew up here.
That is correct. I've lived here all my life. When I was born here in Rutherford County Hospital, my parents lived in Laverne. They took my mom to the hospital, and I come home to our new house in Murfreesboro. So that's how it went.
Wow. And so tell us a little bit about your growing up here. What kind of things were you involved in as a child?
Well, I played ball. I played Little League baseball with Vice Mayor Shackley. He was my coach for several years, went on to do that. Went to Central Middle School after Bradley Model School that was on Mercury Boulevard, or Martin Luther King now. And after that, I finished high school at Riverdale High School.
When did you start your career with the fire department?
I started in February of '85 when I actually started my career. And
how did that get started?
It's kind of a long story or a short story. Let's see. It's back in the early '70s or late '70s and the early '80s. My father was director of civil defense, and that's basically what the EMS or EMA director does now. So I would make calls with him out in the county, sometimes even in the city. And when I moved from K Street onto Mercury, I lived across the street from the fire department. And since I was about 10, I would go over to the fire department, hang out, got to know all the guys that worked here. I was actually their paper boy for about 5 years.
What got you started with that? Like, why were you interested in firefighting or civil defense?
I saw what my dad used to do, and how much appreciation he got from people and how much he enjoyed helping people. And I wanted to follow that same type of career to do that, and it's been very rewarding to me over the years.
In those early years before you became a firefighter, where you were involved either with your father or other people, do you have any particular memory that stands out of doing that, or some incident?
Yes, I can remember several. Of course, it's emergency accidents. One that really stands out with me that I have the picture in my office is my dad up here at the Firestone building off the square when it was burning, had a lot of hazard materials in it. And back then, Chief Swan had called and asked for assistance, and I got that picture of my dad that was at that fire. That was one of the events. I can remember the fundraisers that I used to do, because it was all volunteer back then. A lot of fun times back then. Used to have wrestling matches, gospel singing. But I do remember a lot of calls too, going on some bad calls, probably too young to be there, but plane crashes, bad car wrecks. And there's another one that I also have a picture out of the D&J when Procraft burned up on Old Nashville Highway several years ago. One of our retirees that's now passed on, there's a picture of me and him standing at the pump panel on the fire truck while he's running, and I'm sitting there watching him.
Do you remember what caused that fire?
I do not. I just know it was a big fire, and it was, of course, all that fiberglass in the building was burning up. And at the time, it was actually in the county, and the city went out and helped the county.
So obviously a lot has changed from that time to now. What are some of the biggest things that have changed in the years that you've been with the department?
Well, there's a lot of changes, and all of them are big from the time I started till now. The equipment we use, our tactics we use. I was just thinking earlier about how we used to when we first started, we used to take little fans, about like household fans, and remove smoke out of the houses, and we would basically try to suck the smoke out of it. Then as time progressed, now we're using fans with 10 horsepower motors that move 20,000 cubic feet of air a minute, and we're putting the air into the house. And that was one of the big changes I remember back years ago. It's like, well, if you put air in a fire, it's going to burn it down. But it made so much other difference as far as removing the smoke. The heat was able to go into it. And the first time I ever used it was on Casing Lane, and been using it ever since. It was a positive pressure thing and a positive thing for us, which back years ago we thought that would burn the house down. When I first started here, none of our fire trucks had seat belts in them, had one air pack on each truck that we never used. Now it's mandatory within so many feet of a fire to have on. All of our cabs now are enclosed, of course, with full seat belts and everything. There's just been so much changes in the department. Just several things. We used to ride on the back of the truck. We don't do that anymore. And tactic-wise, there's so many different ways that it's coming up every day to make it safer and for our firefighters and more efficient to put the fires out.
And of course, with all these advances, there has been an increase in training, whereas you probably had some training before, but now it's almost a constant thing to be updated, right?
Exactly. And training ties into a lot of things, a lot of ratings and how our department fits in with accreditation and all. But when I first started here, I can remember asking one of the firefighters there, I said, when do you think I'll get to go to rookie school? He said, I don't know. He said, I've been here 8 years and haven't been yet. But luckily I got to go pretty quick, and we were kind of blessed at the time. The state fire school was right here in town on Old Fort Parkway. And that was basically, if we didn't do any in-house training, which we did pretty regular, the state fire school was the only place we got to go to. Now we're sending people all over the South to go to different trainings and a lot of special trainings that we didn't have back then to even need that training.
And Murfreesboro has its own training center.
That's correct. We have our own training center now that gets utilized just about every day. We have, I'm sure there's somebody there now doing something with the 11 stations. They all have free access to go when they want to. They just coordinate that, and somebody's there about every day sharpening up on their skills.
How beneficial has that been? Share with us what the meaning of that is for your department.
It's very beneficial. The training center, if you go by it, you look at it's got a driving pad. It's got a 5-story building to do high-rise operations in it, and the roof on it's a little bit different than any other roofs. It's got places to rappel off of it, to simulate ventilation, cutting the roof and all that, balconies to work off of, exterior doors with balconies. So you can pretty much build any kind of scenario that you want and train on that you might approach. So it's been a very valuable tool to the fire department here in town.
And now the city brings departments from all over this region.
That is correct. We have surrounding departments that are not as don't have the training center like we do, and we share it with them. We have classes together, and it's been a benefit to a lot of departments around us.
One of the things you're busily involved with right now is the new administrative building. You're going to be relocating at some point. I'm not sure when, but there's a lot involved in that. It
is. The city obtained that building about a little over a year ago. We went in and decided it's 15,000 square feet, and what we've decided to do is split it up because Parks and Rec, we're looking for a new place to go. We've outgrown our administration now. So we decided to split this building in half. They got the first and second floor on one side, and we got the first, second on the other side.
And this is a building on Thompson?
On Thompson Lane, 2140 Thompson Lane. It was actually one of the buildings that was affected by the Good Friday tornadoes and had the roof tore off of it. Of course, it was replaced. We were able to purchase that at a fairly good price, and the price it's going to cost to remodel it to our needs is still close to half of what it was going to cost us to build a new building with new construction costs nowadays.
What's the timetable on when you hope to
Well,
relocate?
we've actually already started, and the deadline is the first of the year. So we're hoping to move in by the first of the year, and it's something we're all looking forward to now.
It's probably going to be a little bit different since you're so used to coming to this location near City Hall, so there'll be some adjustments.
It will. That's one thing we've all talked about, our commute to work, which way we're going to go. Of course, the traffic on Thompson Lane getting out when it's time to go home. But it's going to be different. If you know, our administration now is the old City Hall, which had been remodeled, and it still is not really set up like an office. It works for us right now, but we've outgrown it with over the years as we've grown in our department, and we're just really looking forward to have this. And it's going to have, everybody will have their own office. Everything's going to be new. It's just going to be nice to have. We've never had anything like that, and we're looking forward to it.
When people think about fire departments, they obviously think about fighting fires, but there's so much more that the fire department does in addition to fighting fires, and maybe you could outline just some of the services that you provide.
A lot of times now we refer to our department, instead of a fire department, as an all-hazard department. Normally, if you dial 911 and you're not needing a police officer, the fire department takes all those other calls. Fire calls represent about 20% of our calls. Of course, we do medical. That's in the high 70% of the other calls, and everything after that, as far as animal rescues, search and rescue for people, of course, the water rescue, hazard materials calls, just whatever it may be, because we're set up to accommodate for all those special needs or emergencies that come across.
And like one of the services you probably provide is CPR training.
That is correct.
And seatbelt.
Seatbelt, we do. Actually, it's the seatbelt for the car seats. It's we have found, and we do this in partnership with the police department also. We have found a lot of people have car seats, but they don't know how to install them. So they think they're installed correctly, but they're not, and they're not of use if they were to have a wreck. So we give out car seats that people that may not be able to afford them. We provide them a car seat. The people that do have car seats, we educate them on how to install a car seat.
And you probably encourage people, and it's valuable to the community. You have a number of stations. I know Station 11 was probably the most recent one that was installed over on the west end. But you want people to be active in the community and to feel like they can just drop by the fire station anytime and talk to folks.
Oh yeah, we love to do that, to have people stop by, especially with their children, give them tours, show what their equipment's doing for them. Take a tour of the station, because a lot of people just don't have any idea. They just see it's a fire station and don't have any idea what goes on inside of it. But it's just basically a house with a bigger kitchen and a bigger bedroom, and they're one bedrooms with a bunch of beds. And
I know the station 4 there on Medical Center has a slide.
That's correct.
That you showed to the kids, and then they also have one of the old fire trucks from back in the early 1900s or late 1800s. We
acquired that fire truck from Metro Fire Department. Well, it's not a fire truck; it's a steam engine. Back in the early 1900s, I think it might have been 1908. And it's one of the few that's left in the United States back in war times, where they scrapped a lot of metal. A lot of them got used for scrap to make ammunition and go overseas. So we know of about 4 others of that particular model in the United States, and it's set down at over at the I can't remember.
I think, was it at Cannonsburg?
Cannonsburg, that's where it was.
And it was just in a building kind of catching dust, right?
It was sitting outside under a shed, and we decided to get it and have it reworked and refurbished. And in Station 4, we have a history educational center over there, and it tells the history of the fire department, and that's in that. And
I've seen that, and people should really take advantage of looking at that if they can get by there.
It gives the history of our fire department, shows a lot of old equipment and the steam engine, and we'll be glad to have anybody anytime stop by for a tour.
In 2020, the fire department did something that's pretty remarkable. I think there's like maybe 50-some thousand fire departments, and about 300 and some to 400 have what's called the ISO rating. Which is the Insurance Service Office. And I wanted you to talk about that a little bit and how important that is to the community.
The ISO rating there has been more people to inquire over the last few years, but there's only 8 in the state of Tennessee that have an ISO rating. And the difference between a 1 and a 10 on the scale, which we are a 1, is broke down. It's about a 47% saving in insurance from being a 1 to 10. So
That's huge.
It's huge, yes. If you, and by saying that, it's basically double. You take what your insurance is now. If we had an ISO 10, you double your prices. So, and not only for residents, it's even better for commercial buildings. And it takes a lot to get that. We was talking about the trainer center a few minutes ago. That's one of the big components in getting an ISO 1. You're going to have so many hours of training. It's a lot of factors that deal with that. The training, our equipment, what we carry, our response time, amount of stations, that we have to cover our area that goes into that by getting that rating.
So something for citizens to not only be proud of, but to benefit from in terms of their insurance.
Exactly.
And then in 2021, the whole process of accreditation, and I've been involved in that with the Department of Safety in the past, and that's a lengthy, challenging process of getting everything together to demonstrate.
It is. It's a very tedious process. It's kind of gives you a big picture of your whole department from every angle, how it needs to be operating, and it covers so much. That's a 5-hour subject we could
Right.
talk about, but it goes in so much detail. But it lays your fire department out to where you're at and where you should be with it growing in the next 5 years, and it lays a plan out to do that.
And you received that after this process.
That is correct. When you meet the standards to be where we need to be right now, and we go through a audit every year to see where we're at, what have we done since we were there last year to keep that rating, to keep moving forward, to keep that rating. So it's just a growing process, and it goes all the way from how we hire. It's got community input in it on surveys, all the way up to type equipment, training facility. It covers everything.
And then in addition to that, something we haven't talked about is this, what you're doing now, in addition to firefighting, is responding to emergencies of many kinds, as you've talked about, but advanced life support and paramedics.
Yes. Let's see, it was January the 1st, 2003, we started extrication, and 6 months later we implemented our medical response on July the 1st, 2003. So we've been doing it over 20 years now. When we first started, we were, most everybody had a few EMTs, but we had EMRs, which are just emergency medical responders, that was not trained as well as we are now. But anyhow, the time progressed. Now we have approximately 170 of our employees out of the 230-something certified. They're either EMT or above. And several paramedics, but also right now we have a paramedic grant that we received, and we have 34 students going to school off this grant to become paramedics.
So the way it's working, you have this 170, I think is what you said, but the ones that are not to these higher levels, they're in the process of getting there, right?
That is correct. We have some that are. We have a few olders, employees that are grandfathered in, and we're not making them do it. It's a requirement now.
Because they'll be retiring in
Correct.
several years anyway, right?
And this was really important to us to do. Our EMS system is county operated, in which they cover the city limits and outside the city limits. And we were having medical calls years ago that would be right next to this fire station, and it may take an ambulance 10 minutes to get there. I'm not saying, don't want to talk about response times, it may be there in 2 minutes, but we were sitting there doing nothing. And fire calls were so far and few between. We needed to be doing more, like a lot of departments across the nation's doing. So we implemented this plan, and it has done nothing but grown ever since then. We can basically do everything that the county EMS does now, except for transport. We don't have quite as many drugs because we don't. the narcotics that you keep on the ambulances, sometimes they expire and run out. They're more likely to use them, so we just wait on them to get them, because a lot of times that's just, it's not needed exactly when we get there. It may be, so we wait on them, but we do have some drugs. But yeah.
I was going to say, if I have an emergency, I'm not so concerned about who's there as someone is there.
Exactly.
And if the person can get there faster with those same skills, I want that to happen.
The fire and EMS side with the county, we work so good together now. We had a few bumps in the road, but now we're back running smooth. They
Great.
appreciate us. We appreciate them. We always have extra hands on the truck. We run a 5-man engine company. They only have 2. So when there's a serious call, they're always glad to have an extra hand. And just like your normal code that we go on, we usually have a medic from the EMS, one of ours, and another person, then one driving. It's just, you got 4 to 5 people running that code instead of 2, what makes it more efficient for the patient for their survival.
You alluded to the swift water rescue at one point. How long has that been around, and what do they do exactly?
Let's see, Swiftwater was brought in, we're probably going on 10 years now. We saw a need for it with all of, Stones River running through here. We would have people get caught up, in kayaking's gotten real popular and flooding and stuff like that. And we were having to rely on the county to come in and help what little bit we could do for them. So we put our own team together and started training. We have 3 boats now. They're all different types of boats depending on what type of water you're dealing with. We have certified swiftwater rescue teams. We've been deployed to South Carolina, Texas, Florida for high waters, and we've used it several times here, just getting people off the river.
I'm glad you mentioned the deployments because, like you said, there's been a number of times where there were natural disasters, Florida, North Carolina, other places where you have responded, and the department's kind of gotten a reputation for eagerly wanting to do that.
Yes.
Whenever the need arises. What is instilled within the department to want to do that?
That's just the nature of our firefighters. They want to help people. So when one of our neighboring states is in trouble, we have never had any trouble getting the volunteers to go to be deployed for that. And knowing that they're going to be gone on a deployment from 7 to 21 days, that's a requirement. You're going to be gone 7, maybe up to 21, and that's a big commitment to make, to leave your
Right.
family.
Not under the best of circumstances.
Yes, to go, just like in Texas, we went down and did some water rescue there, and the guys worked 12, 15-hour shifts and slept in an outdoor tent when it was 100 degrees. So it's not like a vacation, for sure.
How many fire stations do you have now? I think we said 11. And where in the future, I mean, you're probably having to go with growth, so there may be
Yes.
another one on the horizon.
There is. There's a couple right now that we're looking at, going to be in the CIP budget, maybe 3 within the next 5-10 years. But what we're looking at right now, we have a need for Joe B. Jackson and Manchester Highway area. And also coming up, there's developments going on at Veterans in 840. It's really starting to, and we have a need for there. We've talked about those 2. They'll probably be pretty close together, just depending on the infrastructure that's there, which one we start first. Then maybe in the next 5 to 10 years, out in the Cherry Lane area, I think there's a connected
New
road
extension going through there, right.
out in that area. And that's about as far as we've looked out right now in our capital outlay.
But you always have to be a step ahead because
You do.
as there's growth going further out, you need that for response
Correct.
times.
And also an issue right now that we're having, ordering a ladder truck or a fire truck, we were on a 18 to 24 months to get those in. Now it's jumped up to 48 months again to get one of those in. So we're having to order the equipment 4 years before we need it. That's due to some regulations that's happened out in California on the anything over 26,000 pounds couldn't be 10 years or older.
And you just ordered a new or received a new apparatus.
We did. Back in March, I think it was. We received ladder 6. It's a Suffin, a 75-foot ladder truck, which explaining the ladder truck, it's really a Quint concept. It's a fire truck with a ladder built on it too, and it's serving the sports comm community out there in Haynes Drive, Memorial, out that way.
As we wrap it up, I think it's useful for people to know what to do. We have older homes, we have smoke alarms that go out that maybe aren't working properly. What's the best advice for someone who wants to improve the ability to save lives within their own home?
Well, a smoke detector is the number one thing that'll help you save your life. We do have a program. If you're unable to install them yourself, you can give us a call. We'll come out and check yours out. The ones you have, see if they need to be replaced, or if you have the type that we will install, we'll install them for you for free and just kind of give you a little home inspection, what you might need and where you need it.
And that's something, like you said, it's the number one lifesaver.
Yes, it is.
And so people that need to update those systems or replace the old ones, it's one of the best things they can do.
Yeah, just, you've always heard it, time change your batteries every 6 months. So I always want to make sure they're in proper working order. A lot of people have a tendency to forget about them until they need them. Mm-hmm. So
you're always having to bring in new recruits. When's your next class?
We have a new recruit class starting this August, I think about the second week in August. We have about 12 of our own that we're hiring, and we bring in some outside people too because they help teach the class. It's a 10-week course, so it's pretty labor intense for us to supply the instructors, so we have outside help. Then after that, we'll have another one starting in January.
Are you finding that the high schools here are providing some good recruits for you?
We're getting some. We've been working our high schools hard. That's been an issue with any kind of profession now, to finding, recruiting, and retention. So we're addressing that issue and going after some of our high schools and trying to get them in here.
Well, best of luck to you. I know you started July 1 in this new role, and we appreciate you taking the time out for here on The Insider.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
This Insider podcast has originated from City Hall. Thanks for listening via Podbeam and other platforms, and as well right here on YouTube. Our producer is Michael Nevels. For more information on the City of Murfreesboro, you can visit murfreesborotn.gov. The Insider is the official podcast for the City of Murfreesboro. I'm Mike Browning, and thanks again for joining us.